Hey everyone, welcome to the Permission Portal with Paul Mark and Laz. I'm Paul Mark.
And I'm Laz. Let's open the portal.
I say I'm not a crier, and the truth is, I don't usually cry over the same thing more than once. That being said, I still don't cry that often. So, when was the last time you cried, Laz?
Last week?
Really? Just
Yeah.
last week?
Well, I cry pretty often, at least 3 times a week when I'm quantum jumping.
Really? Okay.
Yep. So I do a quantum jump and I basically have this scene that comes up that I'm on the lake, in a lake house. I pull up off the lake in my boat. My wife and kids are waiting outside. They hug me. I have friends coming over, and I get into this scene, and I just have tears of joy.
Wow. Yeah, I've had tears of joy, but I haven't had that happen since the last time I really cried was watching Deadpool and Wolverine.
At what part?
That so the battle where all the Deadpools are fighting,
Yeah,
and that when I heard Like a Prayer come on. I have seen Madonna live in so many concerts, and Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds I just adore him so much. And I completely understand why people at concerts just burst into tears
yeah,
for no reason, because I was like, there was so much joy in that moment of all the things, Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds, Madonna all at the same time and
yeah.
of course a good battle. I just tears just came out and it was overwhelming and that was actually the last time I had the tears of joy happen.
I cried Sunday
Sunday.
when I was talking to my brother. Yep.
Okay.
We were just on the phone having a conversation, and he was trying to understand something, and I was sharing with him. And at the end of it, we both cried. And lately, we've been crying in these situations because we go back and forth, and we really are curious about each other's ideas and how we move through the world. That was gratitude.
Yeah, I think I would cry if I had to talk to my brother. But
We had a funky relationship for a long time, a lot of misunderstanding.
Right,
Yep.
right. So, if you haven't noticed, this episode is permission to cry with witness. It has happened to me a couple of times. It used to happen to me, like I said, movies when I was acting during, like, at the end of a show, I would burst into tears. And then there are also some times when people were dealing with things, when people close to me were suppressing their own emotions, the channel in me takes over and I end up expressing those emotions. That has happened to me, but generally for me, I don't tear up like that. I don't cry like that. But this person has actually given me tears of joy, and I am so giddy about today's guest. He is a master emotional navigation coach who helps high achievers break through the plateaus that traditional therapy and coaching have not moved. I remember meeting him as the done dude. When you're done with everything, or if you've done it all, go to this person. His clients often say, I've never felt so seen. He helps people discover overlooked parts of themselves without judgment, bringing clarity, calm, and freedom into their lives. This results in deeper connections with partners, family, and business. He is the co-founder of the Condor Approach, the world's most comprehensive certification for psychedelic informed integration coaches, creator of EmotionAll, and the visionary behind Sistah Sanctuary and Freebra. His coaching is grounded in decades of experience, including 33 years as a nurse, 16 years as a personal trainer, and 10 years as a psychedelic facilitator. Welcome, my friend, mentor, part-time boss, and the object of human desire, Tah Whitty, to the portal. Come on in, Tah.
What up with
Hey
it,
yo,
Bob?
hey, peace, peace, peace.
Peace, peace.
The object of human desire here to inspire your desire and set your soul on fire. Peace, y'all. I
You
haven't
also
used that
know
in a
that
long
he's
time.
also my coach and mentor and friend.
Yeah,
That's right.
You know what I'm
And
saying?
I consider us family.
yeah.
So that's my objective with the people that I worked with, is for them to be able to move into a space where we can be family, where we can be familiar with each other, and then we can add to one another instead of me having to be in some guru seat or some high mentor seat on some stage somewhere. So that's my objective when it comes to coaching.
Yes. And even though people try to put you on a pedestal, you're still like, no, no, I'm just Tah.
Yeah.
Take me on down
Take
from
me off
there.
that motherfucker.
Right?
Take me right on down.
We'll tell you straight
Right.
up too.
Take me right on down.
Take me off
Well,
the pedestal, motherfucker.
Take me off that pedestal. Do it now. Come
do
on,
it
get
now.
me off the pedestal now.
Wait, don't let me go. So when we thought about this topic, crying with witness, both of us immediately thought Tah. You know, I've seen you navigate some heavy emotional spaces publicly and even on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing how you allow yourself to be so raw and so vulnerable in that space, even as I said, when you're on stage and you've got people looking at you, some of them are strangers, and how did you develop the courage to be that vulnerable?
Oh man, how did I develop the courage? It just came to me at one point where I was just like, I care what people think, but I honestly don't give a fuck what they think. In being a mentor, being a guide, I found that when I was well, before I was a guide, I found that I wanted somebody that I could look to that could be a model for freedom, a model for expansion, a model for growth. And I didn't see anybody modeling that. And I always wanted to be free, period. And I found that the one place that I was not being free was in my emotions. I was not being free in the expressions of my emotions and the feelings of my emotions. It was always just stifling. And I found it a bit hypocritical that I was teaching people about emotions. I was teaching people about connection. I was teaching people about relationships, yet I wasn't being free in my expression. And there were some things that happened with some clients that I was working with. Well, there were multiple clients, but it started off with one person that I was working with, but they had some really heavy stuff come up. And I felt that choked up feeling that you feel when you're going to cry and you're holding it back because you're choking it back. That's why we get choked up, because you're holding back. And so the person was going through what they were going through, and I was holding space, but all my stuff started to come up. And so I just let myself kind of shiver and cry. And like the tears came out and my breath started to shift. And they were like, I'm so sorry. I was like, thank you for your expression. Keep going. I'm fine. This is perfect. And so I let everything come out of my body. And as everything came out of my body, then they had permission to open up when they saw me. And they were like, well, if it's okay for you to cry, for you to be in tears around what happened to me, then I can do it. And so that example put me in a space of understanding the empathy of exemplification, right? If I'm an example, then the people who are watching me can be in that empathetic space and have the permission to open up in witness of another human being. And that gave me a trajectory shift. And so I started to, that you have to man up, you have to hold back. And when you're holding space, you have to blah, 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 blah. All of these things that were very rudimentary basics around, particularly around the healthcare industry, around not letting your patients see you this way and you have to be strong for them and all of this. The idea of strength being not expressing the emotions that are coming through you, because strength is to be able to hold that energy in. to hold that energy back. And for me, I had to learn to be strong enough to actually allow the energy to move through me. So that's when it got started for me, y'all. When I started to allow myself to be free in front of my clients, and it gave them the permission to actually let loose and to trust me even more, because I was able to be in that full expression that they ultimately really wanted to be in and that they had been taught not to be in from their childhood. So that's where it got started.
What makes you cry, Tah?
Well, I mean, I can't say things make me cry. I cry in response to lots of things. There can be times where I can see a bumblebee fly by and I just start crying because it's beautiful. And there's a flood of emotions that come through me that I need to let go of. And when people cry from joy, there's a bundle of emotion and energy that moves through the body, and the body has to actually release. And when the body releases, it's letting go of the energetic dynamics that support the hormonal cycle of an emotion. And when we let go of that, we're actually able to purge and release. And so we release that through tears. There's a lot of hormones and stuff that move through tears. There's sweat that happens. There's shaking, trembling. We start to breathe fast because we're blowing off carbon dioxide and other chemicals. We're doing a lot of stuff when we cry. And so there's a lot of things that I cry in response to. I can't tell you what will make me cry. I know that when I feel deeply connected to things, that's when I cry the most. Apologies, y'all. So
All good.
I knew she was going to come back through the door. All right. So I can't tell you what will make me cry other than feeling deeply connected. And when I'm feeling deeply connected to something or somebody, tears will just stream down my face. And sometimes I'll have all kinds of things that'll happen and move through me, but I have to actually move that energy. And there'll be times when I cry where there will be a relative dynamic to something that happened a long time ago in my life that I've been holding in my body. That reminder from being close to somebody or being in an empathetic space with somebody that reminds me of something from my childhood that I never got to process will come up and move through me. So there's lots, man.
Thank you for sharing that because there are different types of tears and there are different reasons why a person would cry. You can cry because you're in so much joy. You can cry because of relief. You can cry because you're so excited. Like when I cried about going to a concert and seeing a person perform that I really thought was great, I was moved to tears for that. So it something doesn't always have to be wrong. And a lot of people think that tears mean something's wrong. You know, people will see you tearing up or will see somebody crying, be, what's wrong? Well, sometimes things are just really right and the tears come out. However, we have talked about your theories on grief and how it makes space for newness. So, can you share a little bit more of that for the audience?
I totally can. And before I get into the grief, the dynamics around something being wrong, I just want to touch on that if that's okay. The
Sure.
dynamics around there being something wrong when we experience traumatic events, right? There's a disruption of wholeness. If somebody takes our toy as a kid or takes the whoopee away, there's a disruption of wholeness, right? The wholeness with that object. If we lose a parent, there's a disruption of that wholeness. If we get injured, right, there's a disruption of wholeness. And so that disruption of wholeness starts a healing cycle within the human physical body. And that process is associated with hormones and the removal of waste products and all sorts of things. So there's a cycle that starts that to happen in the human organism. And that can cause us to have a place to actually need to release an energetic space to right. And this is where a lot of tears and crying, sometimes people cry with no tears, right? And so they'll be shaking and all kinds of trembling, all these things will come online and people will associate it with being bad all the time. This is where the grief dynamic comes in. When we are grief comes from loss, right? Whenever there's a loss, we move into a space of grieving. Some people have shorter grieving processes than others. Some people have longer grieving processes, but there's a hormonal dynamic with that that comes online. When a person dies, you experience loss, you experience grief, the hormones that are associated with that loss come online, and then the body has to actually purge from that process. And so crying is a natural part of purging from that process. Now, if somebody is close to you and they die, you have the memory of them come in and you're constantly remembering them. The grieving process is very, very thick at the beginning. As it starts to get less and less, the crying will be less, the physical dynamics will be less, and they'll be more sporadic or spread out. There becomes a longer period of time in between the need to release, and the events will become shorter as we move away from it. And so the grieving process starts to wear down and wind down. Now, if somebody comes and starts bringing the thoughts of that person back in, the grieving process can start back up again, and then the tears can come back on. This is why when we watch a movie that reminds us of something, or we watch a home video of somebody that we love in the past, the grieving cycle can come back online because the memories of that person are there. So the grieving process can start back over again. And so it becomes a very physiological process where crying is a natural part of that. We have been taught, particularly as male-bodied people, that crying is a sign of weakness, and it's not true. It's a sign that we are letting go of something, right? It's a sign that we're moving something through our bodies energetically. And when you look at people that cry when they're happy, right? There's a process that's going on in the body. Happiness is a wonderful space to be. It's not usually an extended period of time that we're in happiness. So there are hormones that are associated with it, and we need to metabolize that stuff and move it out. And so sometimes crying comes so that we can make space in the body to actually move forward. So the grieving process is a really wonderful space. I do a lot of work with people on it. It's very misunderstood. It's looked at as something bad, and we shame it a lot. And so we run away from it. And I don't want to feel this grief anymore. And yet you're feeling the grief. Grief is a very interesting space that happens over extended periods of time for some people and short periods of time for others. And it's something that I've studied at length. And it's a space that I feel like needs to be spoken about more. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, brother.
Mhm.
You help a lot of people navigate their nervous system. Is there a lot of tears that come with that?
Yeah. With navigating their nervous system, sure. I mean, we all have nervous systems, and the human nervous system is a very amazing space. The human brain, all of the nerves that we have, all of the sensory organs, our noses, our eyes, our ears, our skin, like all of these sensory organs are roped into the nervous system. And so when we have an excess of any type of chemical, or if we have energy stored in any particular place in the body, the brain usually knows where that stuff is. And so if it needs to release, the body will cause it to release. This is like, stop crying. There's no reason for you to be crying. I've heard that a million times around, not just to me, but to other people in my life. Let a person, let them cry, let them get beyond that and move through it, because the nervous system is activating on behalf of the emotional complex. And if the nervous system is acting on behalf of the emotional complex, then let the person purge. If you get them to suppress that and hold that in, it can become very, very problematic. And I don't like to use that word, but it can be very problematic.
Yeah, you say that, and it reminds me. I remember getting my ass whipped when I was a kid, and then being told, "Shut up before I give you something else to cry about." Like, motherfucker, you just gave me something to cry about. Now you're telling me to stop crying.
I got that all the time.
I'm crying because you hit me.
Yeah, I got hit. I was told to cry, and then I was told to shut up. So
Wild
It's like,
shit.
well, what do you want? And then you're like, you shut up. And then they ask you something else, and then you don't say anything, and they're like,
answer me.
I ain't doing shit.
It's like, well, what do you want? I
They
don't
want it
know
all.
what to do in this situation.
Control. That's what.
I mean, I can put a whole bunch of possible scenarios in that space.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So you do a lot of work with people in relationships and perhaps even saving or healing the relationship. What happens when the goal is a conscious uncoupling? A lot of
Just
people
they sabotage themselves, because they want to get out of a relationship. And conscious uncoupling is a fascinating space. It's become really big as a title in the woo-woo communities, in a lot of spiritual places like Austin, Texas,
right?
Taos, New Mexico. Conscious uncoupling. And conscious for me means aware, right? Unconscious means unaware. It doesn't mean that it's not happening. It's unaware in the forefront of your awareness. When you have consciousness, you're aware in the forefront of your ability to be aware. An example of that would be when you go to sleep at night, you are unconsciously aware, right? You're in your dream space and you're unconscious through the body's perception of what's going on. So the body is asleep, but the mind is still very much aware. So that's the subconscious, unconscious spaces. When you're awake, most of you is unconscious as to what's going on. Like I'm talking to y'all right now, but are you aware of what your butt's doing in the chair, what your feet are doing on the floor? Right before I said it, not you weren't thinking about that. So there are unconscious dynamics that are happening all the time. And in order for us to perceive everything that's going on around us, we wouldn't be able to focus on anything. And so our conscious awareness is where we are focused. And so the conscious uncoupling helps people to bring awareness to what is happening with them as individuals on a very conscious and aware level, because people will do things to sabotage themselves, things to sabotage the other person, to see if they can cause the relationship to fall apart, not them being the criminal or the villain in this space, right? I don't want to be to blame. So I'm going to sit around and I'm going to sabotage everything and see if I can get that person to leave unconsciously. And so there's an unconscious sabotage that happens with a lot of relationships. And there'll be a lot of tears because people are suppressing their truth. And so if a person is fighting themselves and they're afraid to tell the truth or speak their truth, their hormone complexes will come online to produce cortisol, vasopressin, adrenaline, and dopamine. And these four things are not designed to circulate through the body all the time in large amounts. And if you're being dishonest, this will circulate through the body, right? And so this is why some people are constantly crying in the bathroom and they don't know what to do about this relationship. And it's not just the argument that they had, but it's the terror that they have of staying in a relationship. And so they can create unconscious patterns to disrupt the relationship. This is where people will go and attract cheating partners to cheat with. This is where people will do things to mess things up in the household, that they won't do the things that they committed to, all kinds of stuff to sabotage a relationship. And then it can cause a terrible rift between people. So, what I help people do with conscious uncoupling is something called lean in and align or let go. And so the question is, where are you? Do you want to be in this relationship? Do you know if you want to be in this relationship or not? And we get into some really challenging questions around where each person is individually. And when I work with couples in that space, I've consciously uncoupled people in marriages, people in boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, boyfriend, boyfriend, girlfriend, girlfriend types of dynamics, and business partners who are usually close friends or married, in uncoupling the business. The thing is, most people are not communicating with each other because they don't know what's going on within themselves. And so I have a long process with each person individually. And I do an intake form with them. And y'all know my intake form is like 46 pages long. And I do a call with each of them to see where they are. And then I have a pretty extensive mediation form, a conflict resolution and mediation form, which asks questions like, what do you see the major issue being here? What do you think the other person sees the major issue is here? Do you want to be in this relationship? Do you think the other person wants to be in this relationship? What's keeping you here? What's making you have this conversation? What do you hope is the resolve here? What if this relationship doesn't work? And I ask all these really raw questions after that to see where the person is. And then we come together and they can't hide from those questions now that I have all these answers. And now it's like, okay, I'll ask some of the questions while they're together, the ones that have discrepancies, the ones that they're both on the same page, I don't really bother with. But when they have discrepancies, I'll be like, well, this is the question that came up. Can you answer that question now in front of the other person? And I'll see if it's the same answer that they gave on the form. And it's usually not. And this is because they may have a physiological dynamic that prevents them from speaking the truth to the other person because it's not safe. And so if there's a safety issue with the partners, there's usually an event where a person will clam up, tears will start to run down their face, right? Because they've been holding the truth in. And so, since they've been holding that, and now they have the opportunity to be in front of a person like me who's going to keep the environment where they can express and they won't be attacked by one another, they will be able to fully express that can come out of the body right there. And we can move through it together. And they learn a new way of having a conversation that's moderated, but they learn a new way of communicating with one another in ways that aren't attacking and biting or feeling like there's a threat or whatever, and still being in their full expression. And so this is where I see a lot of tears in my mediation, in my conflict resolution, is when people finally get huge openings where one partner will have never cried the entire relationship. And this is the moment where they finally get to cry. This is the moment where it finally pops and the other person actually gets to witness them and see the humanity in them. And even if they decide to cancel the relationship out and move away from that and uncouple, they see each other in this way with reverence and with honor and with respect. Respect is a loaded word. Loaded.
Yes.
Mediation's respect is a loaded word, but there's a reverence, there's an honor that happens with people when they can actually finally see the human in the other person. And if they're like, look, and the boundaries that I have with my life right now, I want to move on without this. And then the other person may get upset, tears come up and crying, how could you do this to me? And that person can express all the how you could do this to me. And I'll ask, do you really want to know? And if they really want to know, I'll ask the other person, do you really want to express that? And if they
Right.
really want to express it, I ask this person to actually be able to hold space. You can cry, you can do whatever you want. Just wait until a person is finished. No violence. That and it usually it brings everything down because that person wants to actually hear what the other person has to say. And so we go through this back and forth. My conflict resolution and mediation and conscious uncoupling sessions are 12 hours, right? Like,
Well, and that
and
also allows space for people who have past traumas that just have been trained not to say anything. And when a person finally opens up to communicate for the first time, it can come out forcefully
yeah,
because there's so much pressure inside. So it pops out.
yeah,
And then the other person feels attacked because there's just this pent up energy that comes out. And so now the other person's feeling attacked when that wasn't the plan, that wasn't the intent. And I think that it's important to give that a little bit of space. And also, I I'm very aware of your intake form, which is there is so much there. And it's important to have the data. And I know with working with you, tracking data is imperative. To change anything, to notice what's going on, you have to be able to track data. And I know that, some of the things that you have your clients do, and some of the things that you've even asked me to do, it's like, oh, there's a whole lot of data tracking going on. But it is important to have that information so that you're very aware of what you're doing.
everything is a decision. And people feel like many times they feel like they don't have a choice. And there are lots of options, but they're not aware that they have a lot of different options. They've been taught to be very myopic, very, very myopic with their data. And so they can't see everything. They have these toilet paper tubes, right, that they're looking through, and they can't see anything else. And it's very focused. And there's all of this other stuff out here, all of these other possibilities. And so I ask questions that open up possibilities.
Yeah. And if either or are options, then both and neither are also
That's
options.
right.
I think you may have already answered the question I have,
Tell me.
but you do deep work with individuals and couples. If you already answered it, cool. But how do those sessions differ?
When I'm working with couples and when I'm working, you talking about like when I do a 12-hour intensive?
Hmm.
Well, when I do a 12-hour intensive with a couple, I have to volley back and forth. And there will be things that happen. I had a session about 2 months ago, and the there was one, the couple came in and they were like, everything's fine now, we good. And then I asked some questions and things came up, and then there was a volley back and forth. And so to hold space for the conversation to come up and out when there's a stuck point, then I'll have to pause the other person, and I'll be like, now hold on a second. And I'll insert a question into the dynamic, and I'll bring the question to the surface. And that other partner that's holding space will be like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to ask. So what I'm doing with a couple is I'm having them face one another for a grand amount of the time, and they're having a dialogue, and I'm actually tying the dialogue together so that they can actually have a conversation themselves. And so I'm actually mediating the conversation. I plug myself in for a second. I might say, hold on a second, ask a question, and I'll pull myself back. And so I'm inserting myself into the situation, pausing, inserting a question, and then I step back out. And so I'm actually tying them together and holding the container for them to be in a cohesive space without attacking one another, without violence occurring. Every once in a while, somebody might get a little rageful, and I'll be like, hold on, I'm going to ask you, are you feeling safe right now? No, I'm not. What do you need to feel safe? I need to be over there if I'm going to hear this. And so I'll be like, okay, are you cool with that? Cool. Go stand over there. Right. And then we continue. And so I fade into the paint a lot in the couples dynamics, and it happens between the two people. So I'm actually mediating a conversation and an interaction that can get very, very heated. And if it moves towards violence, or if it moves towards, and violence is not just physical violence, it can be people poking at each other and being aggressive towards one another. And so I'm mediating that. When I'm working one on one with somebody, the violence that they have is internal, right? Believe it or not, that is a lot easier for me to navigate than two people.
Oh, yeah.
A lot easier, because I'm dealing with two different personalities, and I have to be neutral for both people. When I'm navigating a situation with one client, I'm all about, I'm 100% embedded in that one person. And there are times when I'm like, man, I wish I had a session with just this person and then bring them together. That would be my ultimate situation, but it's going to get a little costly for my clients, right? And not, it's
They
going to get
can't
a
afford
lot. Actually, it's going to get 3 times as much costly for my clients. Now, because if I have to do a 12-hour with one, a 12-hour with the other, and then a 12-hour together, it's a pretty extensive dynamic for my body, right? Like the way I hold space. I came out of one of the last ones I did recently, and they were like, how are you still awake? I feel exhausted. They were like, I feel wiped out. And there's two of us here, and there's one of you. I'm like, I'm solid. Look, I used to run emergency rooms for 12 hours, sometimes 16 hours at a pop, with 150 people coming through the door, gunshot wounds, stab wounds, all this stuff. My nervous system is primed to be able to handle chaos, right? And so to navigate two people is a lot more challenging than to navigate one person. And I've had people say it must be easy to just go in and have people talking in front of you and you just poke in and ask questions. I'm like, give it a go. Let me know how that works. But that's a great question, Laz. Thanks for that, man. And I have actually never been asked that question before. So thank you. That's a great question. And it's very challenging to navigate a space with two personalities. And business partnerships can vary, because if you have two people who are the same, who grew up together, like two guys or two ladies that grew up together, they have similar upbringings. But if you have a married couple with completely different upbringings, completely different religious dynamics or ethnic, socioeconomic backgrounds or whatever, that adds a whole other mix to the ball game, right? And so this is where things get really complex and complicated, because human beings are very complex as individuals. But when you mix them up together, shit gets bananas. Bananas. I had one client that was in a relationship and married, and also in a relationship outside of the marriage with two other people. And so,
A dishonest situation?
no,
Oh, and honest.
it was not dishonest.
ethical.
It was an ethical non-monogamous situation that was very complex. And I had to navigate shit with 4 people.
Yes.
And you want to talk about a juggle.
Hmm.
girl. Like this shit was
And
crazy. It was bananas. But yeah.
Well, it's really funny that you're bringing that up because before I started working with you, I did work with the polyamorous community. And people think that, oh, you're in a polypod, you must be having sex all the time and everything's great. And it's like, no, there is a whole lot of talking and there's a whole lot of emotion juggling that happens in those spaces. And you find out many of the people, and I will say this because if you are listening, I'm talking about you. Many of the people that I know that are in a polypod situation, they are trauma bonded. And so there are a lot of emotional things that are coming up in conversation. And there are a lot of where it's like, okay, well, we want to do this, where part of the pod wants to go do this, but so and so feels a certain way about it. And so we don't want to upset them. So that now we're all doing something different, but we still really want to go do this. And then there's a cheating situation that happens because the part of the pod that still wanted to go and do the original thing are now going underground to figure out when they can go off and do it. And just, we won't even talk about that to so and so. We'll just go off and do our own thing. And then now you're being dishonest because you're giving some sort of other story about what you're doing to go off and do this other thing. And I've seen that happen a lot.
you said that a lot of people in polypods are trauma bonded. Is Are they doing this because, well, at least in your experience, in your projection, do they
Okay.
you most do this from a place of they have a fear of abandonment, so they're going into these situations so they can have backup?
So, not consciously. However, there is this idea of they don't want to go through the breakup process. So it's easier to add another person in. And then next thing you know, you're like, okay, so we've got six people in this pod and they're all pretending to get along when that might not be the case at all. But it's easier to add on to a pod than it is to break up the pod because it's kind of like when you're putting together like a recipe. Like if you're baking a cake, you can always add something to give the cake flavor, but you can't take the eggs out, you
Six
know?
people in a pod, that sounds like a lot to deal
It,
with.
and
Fuck.
it is a lot. It's a lot
Yeah.
of emotional labor. And we talked about emotional labor before. So there's an awful lot that goes on. And I can tell you there was the time that I actually cried about the emotional labor. And I've seen people who've cried about the emotional labor. Usually it is someone who is either polyamorous or somebody that is of trans experience because they are constantly being asked to explain themselves.
Mm.
And it just gets exhausting because it's like I've told the story and I've noticed, like I always say, if you still feel a charge, you're not done with it. And there are times when I'm done with it and somebody else is still feeling the charge. And so now I'm dealing with them. And it's like, you know, I love you, but I'm over this right now. It's like I'm bored with the conversation. And I've often told people who have come to me working with me and are new to something, and I was like, yes, you're impressed with your story because this is the first time you're hearing it. And you can be impressed with my story because it's the first time you're hearing it. This is the 552nd time I've told the story. I'm over it. You know? And folks will do that. It's like the people who are, and in my mind, it looks performative. It may not be, it may actually be genuine. But those people who know that you're in a grief space or know that you've gone through something and you're like, okay, I'm holding it together for whatever we have going on right now. and they will come to you and like start crying for you. It's like, now's not the time. You can cry on your own time. I'm not doing this. And I had that happen when my mother passed. And yes, that was a huge loss for me. But 3 weeks after, I think I want to say it was 2 or 3 weeks after, I had a class that I had to go teach. And the people who were hosting it called me up and were like, "Hey, I know you've got this loss. Do you want to cancel?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to cancel. I need to do this. I need to work. I needed some normalcy." And then people who have known me for a while and who knew her, when I'm there ready to teach, they come up and they're like, "Oh," because it's the first time they're seeing me after the loss. And so it's still very fresh with them. I choose not to do this right now because it's all about being there for the class. And so that is one of the things. I don't cry over the same thing over and over again. I might cry over a different aspect of it. So, yes, I've lost a person in my life. And sometimes it's not the actual loss of them. Sometimes it's something that they did that's still here. And I see that and I'm crying over the
Mm.
memory that, the feeling that that memory won't ever happen again. So it's a new dynamic, it's a new aspect of it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Makes sense to me.
Oh,
Totally makes sense. Yeah, I've seen a lot of tears in navigating polydynamics. Not me. That's not my field of participation. I'd rather be in a space where I am somebody's side piece or I have a side piece. That is that is not a committal relationship dynamic. I'm not interested in having multiple partners that I'm committed to. No, thank
well,
you.
and the side piece, we've talked about that before. When the side piece decides to be more than a side piece, and you're
It,
like, no.
that disrupts the whole side piece dynamic.
Yeah.
I'm actually working on a piece of literature around this dynamic. So
Oh yeah, that's gonna be dope.
it's pretty awesome. It's a paradoxical dynamic, and that can cause a lot of tears to come up because people are holding things in their bodies. That's one of the things, swinging it back to the tears dynamic and being able to cry. I find that when people finally find their tears, there's a lot of tears to come up and out.
Oh, yeah.
A lot because they've been holding him back and suppressing it. And so the body has to stuff it down into places and vault the expression of that. And I'm working on a book called The Body of Truth right now. And it has a lot to do with the full expression of the self and the places we store the energy from dishonesty in our bodies. When we are dishonest, again, it comes from a place of unsafety, and we can store these things in pockets. We can store it in joints. We can store it in body fat. There are some people that will store dishonesty in muscularity, and
Yes.
then this is where people get addicted to going to the gym and stuff like that, and then they start juicing up. Yeah, well, I don't know about you, buddy, with these guns over here too,
Shit,
and
you
but
talking about that old version of me, bro?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of work to create places to store dishonesty. I did it myself, and oh, well, I mean, it's a lot of maintenance, right?
And people can store it in even like in the lungs. So like people who are asthmatic
Mhm.
or people who end up with pneumonia. Now, there are actual things that cause pneumonia, but if you always have just a phlegminess that's going on, part of it can be figuring out what you're holding in your chest, what you need to get up and out. And I've told you multiple times, if you're crying and something wants to come out, be it mucus, be it whatever, if you're coughing, get that, spit it out. It
Remember that
it
shit
was
at
coming up. It was
remember
coming up. Yeah, it
remember
was
that shit
coming
at
up. I was like,
Condor. That
spit it out.
Yo,
Get rid of it.
ugh,
Yeah.
I had to cry
so
at Condor one time at the end of Condor, and I just Paul Mark was like, "Bring it out, bring it out." I was like, it was just I don't know what the hell came out of my lungs. It was thick and
It was,
gunky.
yeah, it
It
was a lot.
was
you have asthma.
huh?
I used to have asthma. It started when I was like 7.
Mhm.
I don't have it like that anymore. Very rarely do I use an inhaler.
Mhm.
But that's wild because this is the first time I ever heard that dishonesty can be stored in the chest, but it makes sense.
Well, it's dishonesty, but it's also trauma. So anything that you're if you so your body holds it. I
Mhm.
actually worked with a client when I was doing my community service as a massage therapist. We went to a women's shelter, and there was one woman who could not be touched because she had been physically battered. And so the idea of just even a light touch, she went stiff. She was ready for it.
Mm.
It's like, okay, so we have to be really calm. And there's a way to coax her. And even when you go for a massage and you don't always want someone to dig in and go right for the tough spots. You want someone that's going to gently get in there and then work it out. And so the lady that I was working on, she said that she'd been verbally abused and there was this knot that she had in her glutes, and actually it was more of her glute medius, so it was like on the side up near the hip. And she said that she remembered exactly when it started. And I was like, well, tell me more. And she told me about a time that she and her husband had gone off on a vacation, and he was actually nice for the entire vacation. And then in the truck, they had overpacked and there was a cooler in the front. And she was sitting in such a way that, you know, how sometimes there's something in the way. And so you have to turn a little bit. And she said when they got within 50 miles of the house, and he started his stuff as soon as it was visible that they were almost home. She clenched everything and put it into that one muscle, and it had been tight ever since. She had finally left him, but the muscle stayed tight, and we worked on that. And it was a beautiful experience
Mm.
for her to finally let go of that. So when I told you to get it up and out, it is true. The body is trying to expel it, let it out.
Yeah, and this is when kids are crying,
Mhm.
okay, their bodies know exactly what they need to do to expel whatever they're holding on to.
Yeah.
And we teach them, stop that crying. You're making all this noise. Stop that crying. You better pipe down. Stop it. You know, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And telling somebody that they're fine when they're not is right. And so if I'm a kid and my parent, who is the authority, right, who I see as the authority, is telling me that I'm fine, and I don't believe that, but I hold it in to protect my parents from my truth, right? I learned to stifle my truth,
Right.
right? And then I learned to not trust myself. So I become the unsafe dynamic. And so I'm actually afraid of myself being in full expression, which causes me to shut myself down, to maybe be angry at myself, and so on. And so this becomes an internal process that starts to fall deep. Now, if I'm in a position where I cannot fully express to my parents, then that causes disconnection of some sort. And so the connection space is the heart chakra, right? That's a major connection space, is the heart chakra space. And that's where our chest is, right? And this is where lungs, heart, liver, all of this stuff is involved in that area of the body, right? Your collar, from your collarbone down, is all involved. All of the lymph nodes, all of these things that are happening. Breasts are there, all of the pecs, all of this stuff is in that same area. And if the energy is not moving through that area, I tend to find in my clients that they've had disconnection issues because they're not connecting, one, with their truth, two, with the people around them, three, they may have grief that is unprocessed and unresolved. And if you have grief, what is grief from? There's a loss. If there's a loss, there's disconnection, right? And so this can happen in I've worked with tons of people with asthma. And as soon as they start to resolve their unprocessed grief, their asthma dynamic starts to miraculously decrease and decline and all of this miraculously. "Oh, I don't understand what's going on. My asthma's going." I understand what's going on. You've been honest, right? You've learned to be able to be honest. And this is part of why I'm writing this book, is because this is one of, as a nurse, right? With 33 years of being a nurse, this is the stuff that I find is bypassed. We disregard this and we talk about mental health, when we're talking about emotional wellness, which is not the same thing, okay? It's not the same thing at all. When we start to learn how to navigate emotions and understand where these things are coming from, the tears are a great entry point to starting to see when somebody's on the verge of purging out some stuff and really getting their full expression on the table. And when we are in a full expression, we don't have to hold on to energy. Could you imagine trying to catch a sunbeam in your hand and hold it there and don't let it go? Right? But we're doing that with our truth. Our truth is energy. And if we're holding it in, we build a body that encapsulates the truth.
Mhm.
And it puts it in different pockets. I don't understand why my shoulder's all jacked up. Hey, man, anything you're not speaking around, anything you're not expressing, oh, well, I can't tell my wife this stuff. Tell me. Oh, man, it feels so much looser now that I told you. Like, I'm like, yeah, now imagine if you told your wife what would happen, right? Like, so this is the thing that people are not getting into. And then they may start crying when I'm talking to them. And then they're like, oh my gosh, it feels even better. I'm like, you've been holding shit in this area of your body. Anytime somebody has asthma, anytime somebody has chronic walking pneumonia, anytime somebody's always getting chest colds all the time, I go right to the truth immediately. Throat issues, right to the truth immediately. What's going on? Anytime people have lower chakra issues, hip issues, and all this stuff, are you in your full expression? Because when this area gets blocked up, this is where we express through, right? The throat chakra. Everything comes up and out through here. All of this stuff up here, the third eye and the crown, all of that is esoterics, right? That's mental processing and esoterics. Everything from the body comes up from the ground out through the mouth, right? Out through the mouth, out through the ears, right? Out through the nose. This is really important stuff. And so if a person is not telling the truth, this area can get backed up. We start having thyroid issues, all these throat issues, itchy throat, all this clearing throat all the time. I know when I'm clearing my throat a lot, there's something that I'm not speaking on. And so I get into my journal and I'm looking and I'm finding whatever I'm not speaking on and I'm speaking my truth. I don't care who it's to. I don't care if they walk away, if they leave my life or whatever, I'll cry and purge that out. But that is what I need to express. And so when we look at tears, tears are a great gateway into somebody having the potential of speaking the truth. Instead of saying, tell me more of what's happening with you, as they cry, not passing them a tissue, let them feel their tears rolling down their face. Anything you want to express, any sounds you want to make. Sometimes people need to just make guttural sounds. Those sounds are the true expression of a person's emotion trying to move something out of the body. And when you get into that space, when you can get into the deep guttural crying, most of the time people are like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better after that. I feel so good after that. I feel like 100 pounds lighter after. I hear this all the time. My clients cry, I've never cried like that in my life. I'm like, good. How does that feel? I feel awesome. All of these different things happening. And when we are able to let this stuff out of our bodies, everything changes. And so tears for me are a great space of full expression. Now, there are people who can squeeze out crocodile tears.
Yeah.
They can squeeze them out. And if a person needs to squeeze out crocodile tears, there's still something that they're expressing, that they need help or they want help or they need some kind of attention. There's something there to it. So I don't discount anybody's tears. You're crying, tell me more. What's happening? Because behind those fake ass tears, there's probably some real tears waiting to come out. And if somebody is able to hear and able to tolerate that space and able to move with the person through that, I see a lot of magic happening in witness.
And there are a lot of people, and thank you for saying that. There are a lot of people who don't start crying because they're afraid that they won't stop. I've talked to many people and just said, well, you just have to cry it out. And before they even start crying, they're like, but when will it stop? And it's like, it'll stop when you're done. And to hold space for somebody to just let it all cry, let it all come out. And, whatever they need to do, if it's yelling, if it's shaking, if it's jumping up and down, to create a safe space for them to do that. And you hold such wonderful space when you're doing that for other people. And it has been an honor to hold space for you when you're having your emotional releases.
Thank you, Paul Mark. I appreciate it. I mean, both of y'all have seen me cry. I mean, it's not something that I hide, and I won't hide it from anybody. If I need to get something out of my body, it's coming out, and that's whatever hole it needs to come out from.
Whatever it
Coming,
is.
it's
It's
coming
in.
out. It's coming out, and I appreciate being able to fully express. and letting myself fully express. It's something, it's a gift. Some people come to me and they're like, man, I wish I could express like that. I've had so many people at Condor saying, man, I wish I could have some stuff like that. I've had other people come and tell me, yeah, I feel like you're being performative with how you cry and how easily you cry. And I'm like, tell me,
Okay.
and I say, tell me more, right? Because I could be like, man, fuck you. Why? If they don't know what's going on with me, of course they're gonna. You're talking to somebody. My father used to watch PTL. Do you remember
Praise
PTL?
the Lord.
Yeah, my father used to
Yeah,
watch.
I know that word. Yeah.
He used to watch Jimmy Swaggart, Jim and
Hmm.
Tammy Faye Baker, and they would be on stage crying.
Those were crocodile
Not
tears.
always, man. Like when Jimmy Swaggart got caught in the
Yeah.
hotel with this woman, when Jimmy Swaggart got caught in the hotel with that prostitute, and he got on TV and he was like, I
I
let,
have
he's like,
been.
I've sinned against you. And he's like, I let y'all down. And he's like, I don't, I have no excuses. Right? I got just, and he just like, that was the time that I saw some realness in those tears. Like, and this dude just sat there and sobbed, man.
Was this in
And
the 80s?
this was in
Or
the early 90s.
Or
And I've, for the first time, I had some consideration and compassion for this dude because I thought he was full of shit all the time. And, who am I to judge another person's tears? I want to know. I'm going to ask more questions. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. And I'm not here to judge people. I can ask more questions. And if they don't have answers and I don't feel aligned with it, I can walk away from it. But people have said to me on multiple occasions, I think you're full of shit. And I say, thank you for sharing that. Tell me more.
well,
Tell me, as the tears are running down my face, tell me more.
it's funny as you talk about that because I used to watch those televangelists just for calming, I guess. And I'm one of those, it was like ASMR before I knew what ASMR was. To be able to hear them, and sometimes the music was really great. Tammy Faye was, I felt her energy, and once she got away from Jim Baker, I could see that she was a genuine person and she truly did care. And I think it's important. I loved how you talked about encapsulating the truth because in my training, it was all about what are you angry about or what resentments are you holding on to. But encapsulating the truth is that just resonates with me so much more. It's like what part of the truth are you not saying?
Right. Well, you're holding on to it. And when
Yeah.
you look at the truth, right? When we tell a lie,
Mhm.
every cell in your body has to hold that lie, not just your
Yeah.
mouth. Every cell, every atom, every molecule, every atom, every part, every iota of your body has to hold that lie. So when a person walks in the room and you're holding a lie for that person, it's not just one part of your body. Your entire body has to agree with the lie, right?
Mhm.
It has to agree with the lie. And so if you have multiple lies that your whole body's agreeing with all the time, how much strain are you putting on your body? And how much energy are you holding inside? When you express and you get your chills and you shake it out and it's gone.
Let it out.
I can't tell you how many times I've expressed the truth to somebody and I'm like, oh, I let go because my whole body's been holding that shit for how long? What are we
Mhm.
doing to ourselves, y'all? And then I don't understand why I have this weird cancer. I don't understand why I have this high blood pressure. You know how much pressure it takes to hold a lie in every aspect of your body? Multiple lies? Let go of the shit and see. I guarantee you that if every person that I knew with high blood pressure and I got them to speak all their truth, their blood pressure would be normal in 48 hours. Your blood pressure doesn't go up for no reason. Your body's a very smart machine. It's not just that you're a black person and black people have high blood pressure. We've been taught to suppress ourselves. We've been suppressed worldwide. Most of us, anyway. I can't say everybody, but a great amount of black and brown folks been suppressed. White folks been suppressed too. So have Asians. Everybody on this planet, a lot of suppression going on. When you have a lot of pressure and you're not being honest with yourself and you're not expressing your tears, which are a huge part of your energetic space, it can be an issue. And I feel like as human beings, being witnessed in our tears is very important so that we have support and empathy from other human beings so that we can have license to be in full expression with each other.
We share a lot of tears. We have shared a lot of tears together, you and I. And we've also shared a lot of laughter. And thank goodness we laugh much more than we cry.
Yo, Top,
Yo.
Sistah, Sanctuary. What
Mhm.
happens in there?
Oh man, wonderful things happen. Lots of tears. I can tell you that much. Sistah Sanctuary is my all women's retreat. The only person that's not a woman at that retreat is me. And my wife is an amazing human being and she's wonderful at facilitating things. But there are women that have sat with me in dynamics and they're like, man, I really love the way you flow and the way you help me to open up and see myself in a space where I don't feel threatened, where I don't feel like you're going to try to push up on me and try to get into bed with me and stuff like that. And I'd really love to be able to go deeper with you without Cole there. And well, Cole is my wife for the people who don't know. I was hesitant at first, and then I was like, well, let me see what happens if I put this together. And so I put this thing together called the Sistah Sanctuary, Sisters in Tah, and it's a retreat for women that they can come and sit with me in a space. We cook all our meals together, all the meals, right? From the time we get there, we cook together and we have conversations over food, and we dial in together in the morning. There's these fetishes for coffee that some of y'all have that's absolutely crazy. Not y'all as women, I'm talking about y'all as humans, right? Some there's the what I do is I provide an environment that's judgment free. And so on the intake for Sistah Sanctuary, I ask what your comfort foods are, and I make sure that at least two of your comfort foods are there. And so this allows you a space to take it back to nostalgia so that things can come up to the surface and you can be seen eating the things that you absolutely adore without worrying about being on some diet or some crazy shit like that. You can eat whatever you want. And we cook and we talk about things. The last Sistah Sanctuary, we had a whole conversation around food trauma and it was beautiful, like the things that happened and the openings that came up, and we talked about body dynamics and it was just absolutely wonderful. And the women that have come to Sistah Sanctuary have had this one main complaint is that they have not been able to go deep with other women because they feel intimidated or they don't feel like they can trust other women. And so they've been able to establish these relationships and actually talk about what they want in relationships. And I moderate the conversation just like I do when I'm doing couples, right? And this is one of the benefits of Sistah Sanctuary is I get in, I moderate the conversation, I kind of get things going, and then I get out of the way and I let the women process with each other. And they process with each other and they go deep and they go hard. And then they have these extended friendships. Like the people that I've been in, I've only done it twice so far. So I did it in October last year, and then I did it in June this year. I'm doing another one this coming March. And so I'm thinking about doing it twice a year now. And the relationships that have been established have been awesome. Like they're so deep. And these are like sister relationships, like the sister that they wish they had. And part of the issue that came up in these last Sistah sanctuaries is there's assumptions on what a friend is and not an explanation of, hey, this is what a friend is to me. Are you down for this? Yeah, I'm down for that. But these are the stipulations that I have. And you speak about this from the gate. And so they've taken these dynamics of creating these relationships with each other as sisters, and they've applied it to the relationships with their boyfriends, their girlfriends, their husbands, their wives. Like there are women from all ilks that come to Sistah Sanctuary, and they have this deep dynamic, and there'll be periods where somebody will be like, I need some time with you, just one on one. And so we'll do a one on one situation and I'll talk to them. And the other women will be talking. And then when that person gets exhausted from diving in with me, they'll get up and somebody else will drop right in the chair and be like, well, this is coming up for me. And I'll help them navigate it. And then they'll go navigate together. And there's usually a cohesion around what's going on with them as far as relational dynamics. Sometimes there's business dynamics. Sometimes there's family dynamics, body image dynamics, exercise, like all of these things we talk about. So we cook together the first night. We talk all night. The next day we'll either do some breath work if people want to do movement or some yoga, something. I guide people through some movement in the morning. They have coffee. We cook breakfast together, and it's themed meals, right? Like Friday, we'll have like a taco bar. We'll all make tacos and stuff. And then somebody baked the last one. Somebody made the second night. We had Italian night, and we have like 5 Italian dishes, and we all cooked in the kitchen together. And Then, we had somebody that wanted the strawberry shortcakes from Good Humor. We had all of them in the refrigerator and people were eating them. And we had conversations over all this stuff. And then on Saturday night, we had a dance party. We had all the streamers and the glow sticks and all of this stuff. And then we'll have a fire pit outside. And then on Sunday, we dive in the morning, we integrate, and then people can take their time going home. Sunday, I keep the space in case somebody wants to stay late. You don't have to run to the airport. Everything is super chill. So it's a Friday through Sunday thing, and it's absolutely wonderful. The depth that we go through is wonderful. And then again, I get out of the way and the women connect.
Excellent.
Oh,
And when is the next one?
The next one is March. Let me get the date for you here. The next one is March.
Your assistant told me that there's a cart open and people could actually sign up for that.
They can. They can.
And it's the weekend with the 20 somethings.
Yeah, it's the 20th to the 22nd. Yeah. And it's half full already.
Yeah.
So if you want to get in, you better get on in.
Get on in. And how do we sign up for Sistah Sanctuary?
Yeah, it's just Tah Sanctuary. Call Tah.com. That's CALLTAH.com/Sistah, SISTAH.
Yes.
And join us. Yeah. There's still some early bird going on.
Yes.
There's still some early bird, so get in on it. You might have missed the 20% already. But
For the 10%.
yeah, down to the 10%. Matter of fact, and so if anybody is listening to this podcast, so what I'll do for y'all is I'll extend another 10% so that they can drop it back to the 20%.
Yeah.
If they use the coupon. So let's say, what coupon code will we use? What do y'all want to use?
Permission.
Permission. All right, there it is. Permission. 10%. And that'll be good until, when is the next tier? Gosh.
It's October, right?
I think it's October. All right.
For those of you that really want to dive in and dial in for Sistah Sanctuary, you get an extra 20% off with the coupon code PERMISSION.
extra 20 or extra 10?
Yeah, all right. So here it is.
20%.
Right now it's at 15% until September 15th. So I'll give you another 5% off to make it 20%. Voila. And we'll do that until October 15th. Because
Boom.
October 15th, it drops down to 5%.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So yeah.
What would you like to give our audience permission to do?
I would like to give you permission to stand in front of the mirror and hug yourself and say this: I know everything there is to know about me, and somehow I've been talked out of it, and now I'm talking myself back into it. So I give myself permission to cry. I give myself permission to express. I give myself permission to love me deeply and be the master of my fate.
Mm. Thank you, Tah. So, one of the things that Tah and I have said from the beginning to each other is, I love all of you. And I do love every last atom that is Tah Whitty. So, thank you so much for spending time with us today. And thank you for joining us here in the portal. And I want to give the audience permission to feel however you feel and communicate that to the people you know care. And thank you so much for caring as you do, Tah.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks for joining us here in the portal. And please like and follow for more. Check out our links in the description. And sharing is caring. So share this with a friend or two or 10 If you have questions or topics that you would like us to cover, please send them to the permission portal at gmail.com. And remember,
The portal is always open.